At the age of 7, I remember asking my mom how much did it cost to legally change my name. Confused as to why I was asking this, my mom said the first number that came to mind, $100, while putting on my jacket and rushing me at the door to get me to school. My name is Guadalupe Berenice Gonzalez Torres. And if you couldn't already tell by the way that I look or by my name, I am Mexican American. Born in the large state of Texas to 2 Mexican immigrants, I am Chicana. Who speaks Chicano languages? I am fluent in Spanish, English, and the mestizo languages of Spanglish, Tex-Mex, and the Chicano Texas dialect. At a young age, I couldn't understand the complexities of racism. I didn't think about my skin tone, the way that I look, or how Mexicans used to often describe someone who looks blatantly Mexican, el nopal que llevaba en la frente. But I knew the feeling of shame very well, so I blamed it on the 32 characters that made up my name as the root cause of that shame. What I didn't know is that it didn't matter what my name was. What mattered was the fact that I looked like a language and I sounded like a race. That is why I'm here today, to talk about my people, our language. We, the Chicano people, are our language. I began my bilingual education, like many bilingual programs, mixing the monolingual Spanish speakers with the monolingual English speakers. In my case, this happened in the 2nd grade. I attended the same elementary school for my entire elementary education, beginning pre-K through 1st grade with 30 monolingual Spanish speakers, majority from Spanish-speaking immigrants, majority of them also Chicano, and most of them, or all of them actually, part of the same bilingual program. After the end of the 1st year of bilingual education, 10 of those peers had dropped. And by the end of the 2nd year of bilingual education, an additional 15 of them had dropped. By the time of my graduation in the 5th grade, I was 1 out of 3 Chicano students graduating from the same elementary school. How was I able to be 1 out of those 3, you might ask? Well, I learned how to tame my tongue. I was regarded as this ideal student. My teachers loved me. I placed first at the science fair, AB honor roll student, gifted and talented program all of grade school. But most importantly, I was an example of a proper Spanish and English speaker. In these crucial grade school years, my Spanish-speaking peers and I were being pulled out of our classrooms to have more time to fix our English. We would be timed for a minute to see how many English words we could comprehend in that single minute. And in the English curriculum, we were strongly encouraged to not speak any Spanish, a practice that, of course, was not echoed amongst the monolingual English students for the Spanish language, even though they were part of the same dual language program. And at home, I only spoke Spanish. I remember the first and the only time that I accidentally slipped an English word into our Spanish conversation with my mom. And she quite literally pulled me outside of her home, drew a line on the floor, and said, de aquí para allá puedes hablar tú todo el inglés que quieras, pero aquí en mi casa se habla español. Que ya después no vas a querer ni hablar conmigo. My mom was very strict on how I spoke my Spanish, and between being policed at home and being policed at school, I learned to adhere to the linguistic rules that the authorities in my life had set forth. I was regarded as this ideal bilingual student who spoke proper Spanish and proper English. I was proper. I adhered to the social rules, the class rules, and the linguistic rules. And I was praised for not mixing my Chicano languages, something that, of course, my Chicano peers mostly did. I learned to understand what was being asked of me on both sides, and I learned to negotiate the usage of my tongue, hiding my Chicano languages to only the confine of my Chicano circle, speaking my tongue only with my peers, or in the arts, in the case that there was no authority, or in the rare occurrence that the authority was a Chicano person. Chicanos speak a variety of languages. We speak standard Spanish, English, Spanglish, but we also speak Tex-Mex, Pachuco, Calcalo, Chicano, the Spanish, which has Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, having its regional variations, standard Mexican Spanish, the North Mexican Texas dialect, among other dialects. Each one of these with its distinctive rules, usage, and history of becoming a language, all with the common factor of wanting to stay close to our indigenous roots. Chicano people are unlike other immigrants. The land that we densely reside at used to be part of Mexico prior to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. We, for a long time, have posed this governmental threat where we don't look to assimilate. Instead of adopting the English language and dropping our Spanish, we take both languages and make it our own. A skill that we learned to develop due to the constant opening and closing of the southwestern border to best suit US economic needs, and what Gloria Ansaldúa refers to as the open wound. The 1942 Bracero program is a key example of this, which extends to 1964. During this time period, the US welcomed Mexican farm workers to work on the farmlands to feed an entire nation during the midst of World War II. At the same time of having that responsibility to feed an entire nation, these workers were subject to excruciating discrimination, like lynching along the borders, loopholes to reduce their pay wage, and were subject to various medical examinations where they were sprayed with DDT to clean the dirty Mexicans. At the same time, in 1953, Operation Wetback went into enforce to address the sentiment that these Mexican workers were stealing American jobs. Doesn't that sound familiar? This governmental hypocrisy led to an estimated 1.8 million people being deported. Around 60% of them actually American citizens, born on US soil, if not first-generation immigrants. But see, it didn't matter if we were born inside of the US or outside of the US. What mattered was the fact that we looked and that we sounded Mexican. Mexicans became the face of illegality and Spanish the tool to distinguish the legal from the illegal. But the Chicano people adapt. We learn to adhere to the English rules, to adapt or learn the English language, to have job and educational opportunities, while also holding on to our Spanish, to hold on to our roots, and create the Chicano languages, to have a language to express our unique experiences. We are our language. So it is no surprise that our languages became highly racialized. The pure English language was not to be mixed with the second-class language of Spanish. Chicano languages soon came to be known as these dirty languages. A dirtiness so literal that Chicano students in public education spaces were being punished for speaking Spanish by quite literally using soap to wash their mouths. An illegitimate tongue that must be fixed was the narrative on both sides of the border, but the Chicano languages are resistant, the great unifiers for El Movimiento Chicano, demanding educational recognition in the curriculum while setting crucial legal precedent, such as the case of Mendez v. Westminster, which was used to be cited in the case of Brown v. Board of Education. Yet even having been born in the state of Texas, where a lot of this history happened, I never learned about my empowering history. I was only filled with shame. As young children, we learn to navigate and to survive the psychosocial violence that is embedded into school systems, who are constantly delegitimizing our language and who are constantly trying to fix us, but at the same time use us. See, for the Anglo child, the dual language program was an opportunity to learn a second language, to expand their knowledge. Yet for the Chicano child, it was framed as an opportunity to fix themselves. Dual language education has actually been proven to disadvantage the student as it poses academic problems for having to miss crucial coursework, social integration difficulties as they're constantly being shamed in front of their peers, and this shame affecting their emotional well-being, which also affects their academics. Administrators believe that due to our young age, we are unaware of what is happening, and for that reason, more malleable. But this isn't just my story. This is an ongoing story. J. Rojas Carranza, an 11-year-old Chicana born in the state of Texas, enrolled in 6th grade public education in a bilingual program just like mine. Her parents, Mexican immigrants whose first language is Spanish, were used by her classmates to bully her inside of the classroom and on the school bus. She was repeatedly told that ICE was coming for her parents and that she would be left alone once they were deported. She was terrified, so terrified that she was found by her 8-year-old brother unconscious after attempting to commit suicide. And on February 8th, 2025, she passed away. The deacon at the church in which the funeral service took place said, and I quote, "She didn't know how to understand the things that were happening in the world," end quote. And while we know that he meant well, I, like many Chicano students, know that she knew exactly what was happening in the world. She knew of the violence that her community was facing. She was facing it herself, and her peers knew of the violent forces and drew on them to commit this violence. I knew it when I learned how to tame my tongue. She knew it, and Chicano children know. We are well aware of the goal of the forces that are constantly trying to assimilate us, change us, and we know their violence. To the Chicano people, I ask that we enjoy our linguistic mestizaje. It has been the mechanism of our survival, our evolution, and our resistance. Be free to swim in the fluidity that is our language, for it is ours. To my Mexican people, I ask that you be a refuge and that you embrace the Chicano languages that your child is speaking, for they are trying to be close to their indigenous roots in a system that is intolerant to them. And to the allies and educators, we don't want your legality. We want legitimacy. American legality has no value to me. It made slavery legal, it made the lynching of my people legal, and it continues to exploit my people in a legal manner. I want legitimacy. Recognize my language as legitimate. Recognize us as the great negotiators that we've had to be. Legitimize my tongue so that we are not constantly placed in a position to fix our serpent tongue. My name is and will continue to be Guadalupe Berenice Gonzalez Torres. For as long as these violent forces are placed against my language, I will be in constant resistance, and my language the greatest resistor. Don't frame my language as a barrier to overcome, but rather learn to listen and to acknowledge our complexity and our fluidity, for we are our languages. Thank you.